Hi everyone! Hello everyone, my name is Jair.
And my name is Nui. We are the member of IYF Sri Lanka Volunteer. And today we are the host of Saturday Academy. So everyone, from now on, we will be having our Saturday Academy live through YouTube. So to be able to participate this live academy, you will have to go to our IYF Sri Lanka YouTube channel.
The live Saturday Academy starts every Saturday at 10 a.m. in Sri Lanka time. Please participate and show a lot of interest. And don't forget to subscribe and like it.
Before we start, I will explain today's schedule. So from 10:15 to 11, we'll watch Korea Tour. And we'll watch a performance from 11 to 11:05. And special lecture is from 11:05 to 11:55.
Okay everyone, are you looking forward to it? Okay, yes, thank you. Before we start, I'll give you an announcement. From September 25th to 27th, we will hold on 2020 IYF Sri Lanka Online World Cup. Then first, we'll watch the video.
This is a festival where people of different cultures and nationalities come together, and we learn and help each other, and we care for each other. The World Festival brings us together so that we can understand each other and bring each other together. That is why the World Culture Festival is important, so people from different walks of life can be together. The World Festival, come and join us.
Understanding and learning each other is truly amazing. It's like seeing a new world, and IYF has opened this world for me.
Now the greatest leaders of this world have a strong mind. And through IOAF, we listen to many mind lectures. Now these mind lectures are able to instill a strong mind within us. So I believe the students of IOAF will be the greatest leaders of the world.
It's strange to gain your hope, being able to change despair of hope. IYF is my hope.
You know, I'm lived without thankfulness, but now I'm different. IYF taught me thankfulness.
Stories of success changed our life. We're changing. It's great. IYF changed us.
In IYF, I can see more cultures and I can learn it. It is a platform for learning, and IYF is the greatest teacher.
The word will be led by the young people, and all of the students that are here today attending this conference will be immaculate, and they are serious about world leadership, and they will be great leaders.
마약을 했던 사람,
whether they used to do
게임
drugs,
중독된
or
사람,
whether they used to be addicted to
각종
games,
자폐증에 걸린 사람,
or had autism.
그 사람들이 변하는 거 보면 너무너무
It
행복합니다.
makes me so happy to see them changing.
참 많은 사람이 변화를 있고
And many people receive change,
새로워져 가고
and
있어요.
they are renewed.
The change of heart, the change of life, the change of path. The history begins here. And where is here? The IYF.
Yes, I know. IYF will change your life, right?
Did you watch well? It looks fun, right? As you can see, there are various programs such as lecture or special guest speaker, mind lecture, and more. So this online work camp will bring many joys to everyone, so we hope all of you can participate.
This time, let's welcome the person who is in charge of K-pop contest will come and give us brief explanation.
More and I'm out the door. The high life I've been waiting for. Got no home, ain't got no name. Changing my view again and again.
This time is Korea tour time. Let's go to Busan where you can see the vast ocean and the 국제시장 where you can enjoy various foods.
Let's go! Everybody come to Haeundae. Everybody come to Gwanghwaali. Everybody come to Dongbaekso. Busan Bakyeosin. Everybody come to Nampo-do. Everybody come to Jagalji. Only rockin' with the Agashi. Only rock, rock. Busan Bakyeosin.
the Bay 101.
This is famous for night view, isn't it?
We can take the best picture of your life.
Let's go!
It offers fantastic view of Busan shoreline.
Shall we take a ride? Let's go!
Look at this, a lot of people. The Haeundae beach is the most famous beach in Busan. Come to Haeundae.
Do you know Korean
Busan Cinema Center is the venue of the Busan International Film Festival, a major world film festival.
The center is also one of the most popular tourist attractions in Busan. 여러분 즐거우셨나요? 네! 코로나로 인해 한국에 올 순 없지만 코로나가 끝난 후 다 같이 한국에서 만나요. 안녕!
오늘 밤엔 분명히 운명적인 만남이 시작될 것 같은데 잠시만 어제 우린 다 접어놓고 어디로 떠나요 Baby 어젯밤 울었나요 눈을 부어있네요 내 손 잡아요 한 번만 딱 한 번만 나를 믿어요 화장을 안 해도 돼 생얼로 렌트는 내 금에도 싱글로 네 여자친구는 내 여자친구는 걱정하지 말고 다 불러
와우! 그럼 다음 힐까니까 준비 됐지 여러분 즐거우셨나요? 네! 잠깐만
근데 너무 입만
오케이 자 마지막이야 마지막이 아니다 자 마지막이야 준비 시작 Finally we arrived in Gwangwon. Gwangwon Bridge is the longest bridge in the Korea.
Can you see that? Isn't it beautiful?
Let's go!
길을 잃어 헤맬 때 별이 보이지 않을 때 해줄 것은 없지만 아직도 끙끙대며 걱정하는 그대 이 노래를 불러요 쓸데없는 생각들은 하지마 우리는 서로에게 말지마 가끔씩 다른 여자 눈길이 가도 내 마음은 항상 너니까 We fall wrong, right or wrong 절대 후회 없는 girl 그대가 원하는 것이면 뭐든지 해줄게 오늘 밤 wow.
자, 드디어 도착했습니다. 여기 어디죠?
여기는 국제시장입니다.
오늘 저희가 여러분께 국제시장을 소개해드릴 거니까요. 오늘 국제시장에서 먹어봐야 할 음식, 가봐야 할 곳, 사야 할 것들을 여러분들에게 알려드릴게요. 그러면 고고!
국제시장에 놀러오세요.
국제시장에 놀러오세요. 국제시장으로 놀러오세요. 여러분, 국제시장으로 오세요. 국제시장으로 일단 오세요.
국제시장으로 놀러오세요. 국제시장으로 구경 오십시오. 국제시장에 꼭 오세요.
국제시장으로 놀러오세요.
국제시장으로 놀러오세요.
국제시장으로 놀러오세요.
국제시장으로 일단 한번 와보시면 압니다. 국제시장으로 어디서?
국제시장으로 놀러오세요.
국제시장으로 놀러오세요.
국제시장으로 놀러 한번 와보이소.
예.
찍어라. 다 하면 이쁘다. 이거 딱 보고 사진에 나오게. 자, 요래가 찍으면 이쁘다.
이게 뭐죠?
이거는 비빔당면인데요. 부산에서만 먹을 수 있는 음식이에요. 잠깐 멈춰봐. 당면 풀리죠. 네. 빨간 당면. 많이 좋아야 되네. 면. 약간 조금 짜요. 근데 계란이랑 이거 당면이 맛있어요. 끝! 떡볶이에요, 떡볶이. 갈릭? 아.
이 음식이 뭐죠?
이건 한국인들이 즐겨 먹는 떡볶이라고 합니다. 쫀득쫀득하고 약간 맵습니다. 스파이시.
맛있어요?
딜리셔스.
이건 뭐죠?
이거는 부산의 유명한 씨앗떡입니다. 먹어볼게요.
네. 뜨거워요?
네. 안에 꿀이랑 견과류 같은 게 들어가 있어요. 쫄깃쫄깃하고 달달하고 맛있습니다. 좋아.
여기 어디죠?
여기는 자갈치 시장입니다.
Deep in the midnight 길 위에 나 홀로 회색빛 도시는 더 멀어져 가고 까마득하게 이어지는 길은 날 끝도 없이 떠나게 만들어 표지판도 없이 지도 하나 없이 난 나침반이 되어 한 발 한 발 더 멀리 마침내 끝끝에 일렁인 불빛이 안내해주는 길을 따라 발을 멈출 때 I'll be there when the party started the midnight 저 멀리 나 홀로 선명한 달빛 따라서 걸어가 좀 어지럽게 휘어지는 길은 이대로 잠시 날 쉬게 만들어 쏟아진 별빛도 불어온 바람도 이제서야 모든 게 하나하나 느껴져 깊은 밤이 가고 해가 떠오를 때 좀 더 새로운 길을 따라 발을 디딜 때 I'll be there when the party started I'll be there when the party started
여기 쳐다보세요. 안녕.
I'll be there when the party
웰컴.
또 불어온 바람도 이제서야 모든 게 하나하나 느껴져 깊은 밤이 가고 해가 떠오를 때 좀 더 새로운 길을 따라 발을 디딜 때 I'll be there when the party started
보여?
뒤에 있는 사람도 다 보이는데? 저거
I'll be there when the party started 하얗게 번지는 머릿속에다 그대를 새겨놓고
여기는 보수동 책방 골목입니다.
시간을 되돌려서 그대로 돌아가고 싶어 Falling 이대로 falling for you 날 잡아줄 수 없어
전 책을 읽어요. 끝.
좋았던 나날도
Do you know K-pop?
함께니까 걱정하지 말라 모든 건 우연히 열리니까 우린 완전 달라 baby 너를 찾아낸 둘이니까 When you say that you love me 난 하늘 위로 건너 영원히 말해줘 just one more time When you say that you love me
BTS V.
하지 않는다고 just one more time 넌 내게 이 세계의 전부 같아 더 세게 아프게 날 꽉 껴안아 We gonna something and you can't make it nothing 잊지 않아줬으면 해 너네 하루 하루 여름 겨울 넌 몰라도 You got the best of me
Wow, so handsome.
You got the best of me
이게 뭐예요? 코리안 트레디셔널 마스크.
여러분 오늘 어떠셨나요?
볼 것도 많고 먹을 것도 많고 재미있었어요. 한국에 오시면 국제시장 꼭 한번 와보세요.
코로나 끝나면 다시 만나요.
오 마이 갓.
자, 도착했습니다.
뭐하냐?
여러분 오늘 어떠셨나요?
볼 것도 많고 먹을 것도 많고 재밌는 것도 많은 여기는 어디죠?
여기는 부평 깍.
Did you have fun? Don't you want to come to Korea? We also want to go to Sri Lanka.
Yes, thank you. And this time, let's watch the Latin American dance,
La La.
Te mueves tú, se mueven todos y vibra de emoción, es pura diversión. Te mueves tú, se mueven todos y vibra de emoción, es pura diversión. Ven, levántate, destapa la vida, que hay tanto por hacer cada día. Y hoy brilla el sol en tu corazón. Ven, es hora de moverte conmigo.
Hoy juntos lo podremos lograr. Enciéndete ya.
Pongámonos en acción. Es pura diversión.
Y ya, muévete ya. Dale a tu cuerpo lo mejor.
Te mueves tú, se mueven todos. Destapa el movimiento de tu cuerpo, nena. Te mueves tú, se mueven todos. Bailemos todos juntos que la vida es buena. Y ole, oh, la, la. Manos arriba y paso al lado. Dame de vuelta y para atrás. Ole, oh, la, la. Todos abajo, dale cintura que esto no va a parar.
Ven, despierta y llénate de energía. Contagia a todos con tu alegría.
Es hora de vivir con pasión. Ven ya, que tú eres parte del movimiento. Con Coca-Cola vive el momento.
Que sube por dentro, verás qué gran sensación.
Es pura diversión.
Y ya, muévete ya. Dale a tu cuerpo lo mejor.
Te mueves tú, se mueven todos. Destapa el movimiento de tu cuerpo, nena. Te mueves tú, se mueven todos. Bailemos todos juntos que la vida es buena. Y ole, oh, la, la. Manos arriba y paso al lado. Dame de vuelta y para atrás. Ole, oh, la, la. Todos abajo, dale cintura que esto no va a parar. Muévete, dale tu cuerpo lo que quiere y muévete. Invita a todos a pararse y muévete. La mano abajo, la mano arriba. Dale cintura con alegría. Que mover el cuerpo es pura diversión. Porque si tú lo mueves se te alegra el corazón. Tú puedes formar parte de este movimiento. Si te mueves tú se te alegra el sentimiento. Se mueve el grande, se mueve el chico. Se mueve el padre, se mueve el hijo. Que nadie se quede sentado. Con tu cuerpo para adelante y para el lado. Se mueve el joven y el ancianito. Se mueve el alto y el chaparrito. Si tú te mueves te muevo yo. Y así nos movemos todos. Te mueves tú, se mueven todos. Destapa el movimiento de tu cuerpo, nena. Te mueves tú, se mueven todos. Bailemos todos juntos que la vida es buena. Y ole, oh, la, la.
Manos arriba y paso al lado. Dame de vuelta y para atrás.
Ole, oh, la, la. Todos abajo, dale cintura que esto no va a parar. Te mueves tú, se mueven todos.
Do you enjoy the performance? We will continue to show you more great performances. This time, we will listen to a special lecture with the topic What Makes You Happy by Dr. Jeff Tappan, who is a co-founder of Himalaya Cataract Project. Please welcome Dr. Jeff Tappan.
elation and the joy.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and to speak to all of you. Good morning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal journey and how I've gotten to be where I am. I'm going to talk a little bit about climbing at the beginning and how that sort of fit into my life. And if I have one message for you all, it's just never ration your passion. And you really, if you're doing what you love, it's never work. You're just having more joy than anyone else. I'm currently in a fairly nice position. I have an endowed chair at Stanford University. I'm a professor of ophthalmology and global medicine at Stanford University. And I'm the chairman of the Himalayan Cataract Project, which began, as you'll hear in a little bit, in Nepal, but is now spread pretty much throughout the developing world, working to overcome needless blindness. And I didn't really start where I am. I was a climber when I was a kid. And this is actually a picture of Mount Everest. It's the highest mountain on our planet. It's 29,028 feet, a three-sided pyramid on the border of Nepal and Tibet. And the mountain was first climbed in 1953 by Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay Sherpa. By the early 80s, everything on 2/3 of the mountain had been climbed. But that largest and steepest side of the mountain in China, the east face, had never been attempted. And I was just a kid who liked to climb. I did a lot of rock climbing, and we lived in New Mexico, and I started hiking with my dad a lot, started skiing, ski racing, and began climbing just frozen waterfalls and rock. And my only early dreams were things like El Capitan and Yosemite. I didn't really think of the Himalayas. This was sort of the world of, the mythical people you read about. And I did a little bit of moderate mountaineering. I went to college at Yale, and I knew I wanted to do something in medicine. I loved sciences, and I applied to medical school while I was in college. But then Yale put me up for the Rhodes and Marshall Scholarship Competition. And all of a sudden, my life changed. It was sort of one of those little life-changing events. My other kind of message is really to take advantage of serendipity. And when opportunities come, kind of flow with them. And so Yale put me up for these scholarships to go to Oxford University for a couple of years. And I won. And I decided I'd look at comparative healthcare systems. I studied philosophy, and I earned a master's degree in philosophy. But my focus was initially on looking at the sort of moral imperative behind healthcare delivery. And it was the first time I really examined the disparity in healthcare access and quality between the haves and the have-nots in the world. And I really began to have an interest in global medicine rather than simply my initial idea when I was in college was that I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I also was now in Europe. I was in England at Oxford University, where they have an 8-week term, then a 6-week break, an 8-week term, then a 6-week break, and an 8-week term, then a 3-month break. And I was able to more or less climb all over the Alps. And I had really almost 20 weeks a year that I could devote to climbing. And Oxford also had these indigenous trust funds that were remnants of the days when Oxford students were supposed to be civilizing various aspects of the world. And one of the grants was the A.C. Irvine grant for Oxford students to enjoy a strenuous holiday in mountains abroad. And so my partner and I started tapping into that, and we began going to a little bit more remote areas. And it's the same thing in medicine. You heard I've written some books and articles about the way we're changing eye care. Well, the way you become known is by doing something different. And in climbing, it's doing something different. And this is my climbing partner from Oxford, Bob Shapiro. And he and I weren't necessarily the two best 20-year-old American climbers at the time. We were the only two who had this Yosemite big wall experience who were getting funded to go to remote places. And we went to Africa. We had an amazing trip going with the Dani tribe in Irian New Guinea to climb a big rock wall in the middle of the jungle of New Guinea. It's a glaciated peak on the equator in New Guinea. And we had some great climbs and did a few things that hadn't been done before. And then I attended Harvard Medical School. I was in my first year at Harvard Medical School when I got asked to speak at the American Alpine Club annual meeting about our climbs that we had done in New Guinea and in Africa. And a couple of people kind of liked my jokes. I met a couple of the sort of famous climbers who I sort of looked up to and began to mentor me. And one thing led to another. And a couple of years later, I was a third-year student at Harvard when I got asked to join an American team sponsored by National Geographic and ABC Television to try and make the first descent of the east side of Mount Everest. And this was another one of those sort of interesting kind of serendipity things. This was our team. And I applied for a leave of absence from medical school to go climb a mountain. And I got a call a few weeks later from a guy, still one of my heroes and mentors. I just spoke to him a couple of days ago. He's 93 now, named Dr. Mike Weidman. And he said, "Hello, is this Jeff Tabin?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You're an idiot." I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "You're a complete moron." I said, "Well, who is this?" He goes, "Well, this is Professor Mike Weidman at Harvard Medical School. And there's no way, none, zero, less than that, young man, you'll ever get a leave of absence to go climbing again. But anybody with half the intelligence to get into Harvard Medical School should know that if you apply to do research, Harvard will give you credit." And I happen to be an ophthalmologist interested in the effects of high altitude on the retinal vasculature. And let's forget about your research project, your climbing leave of absence, and let's talk about our research project. We're going to be investigating the effects of high altitude retinal hemorrhaging and the correlation with high altitude cerebral edema. So this was me back, it was 1983. And this was a little bit more technical of a route than had ever been attempted on Everest. And you go into something, a lot of the sort of cognoscenti of the climbing world at that time felt it was absolutely impossible. And that no one had done technical climbing at this level on a peak like Everest. And we went, and how do you take on a big challenge like the east face of Mount Everest? One, it's just focusing on the moment. That's my second. So don't ration your passion and always focus on the moment. We really, just getting just to the next step. This was our one comfortable camp on the mountain. We had a big overhanging rock and ice head wall. We had an amazing team. We had just a very short break of better weather, and 6 of my teammates made the summit. This is my teammate Lou Reichard on the summit of Everest. We did the first descent of the east face of Everest in '83. That's actually still never been repeated. And it was an incredible trip, incredible teamwork, and really just learning. I learned so much on that trip. I was the youngest person. And I came back, I finished medical school, and I knew I wanted to do something in global health. I wasn't really sure of the direction in global health, and I did an internship and a year of orthopedic surgery, and was thinking of how I was going to fit my interest in doing something in the poor regions of the world. And I got invited to go back with a team that was funded to help the first American woman get to the top of Mount Everest. We had 7 strong American men, 4 American women. We also had a team of native helpers from the Sherpa people. And it's a much easier route. We followed, those of you who've sort of watched the TV shows about Everest, this is kind of the standard route on Everest. This was now 1988 and very very uncrowded. We went beautiful, beautiful sort of classic mountaineering to the saddle between Everest and Sister Peak Lhotse. And this is Stacy Allison, who on September 29th became the first American woman to climb Mount Everest. And 2 days later, I went with Peggy Luce, who became the second American woman to climb Mount Everest, along with Dawit Sering Sherpa and Nima Tashi Sherpa. And you could see, in the National Geographic pictures last couple of years, you see the big crowds. Here we were totally alone, and we were climbing with no ropes. And beautiful, beautiful summit day. This is on the summit of Mount Everest. That's me on the summit of Everest in '83. And one of the other little things of serendipity and sort of, again, taking advantage of things, I was supposed to go back and continue some training in America, but I ran into Sir Edmund Hillary, who had actually done the first ascent of Mount Everest in 1953, and it was 25 years later for him. And we met and we began talking, and he had built hospitals and schools for the Sherpa people, and he asked me to stay and be a doctor at one of the hospitals he built. And I kind of seized on the opportunity, and I spent a year working in a remote hospital in the hills of Nepal as a general doctor. And it was relatively frustrating. There were a lot of things I couldn't treat and a lot of things I couldn't do. And most of the big problems I was facing were really public health issues. Kids would come in with bad diarrhea. I'd give them antibiotics, rehydrate them. But 2 weeks later, they'd come back just as sick as they were before. And I watched children die of things that would be so easy to care for in the Western world. And I then saw the miracle of eye care. And this is what a mature cataract looks like. This is the whole pupil of the eye is turned white. In America, we never see that because people get treated way, way before it gets to this stage. At this point, the person would only see light and dark. They couldn't see the shadow of a hand move across their face. And in the village where I was working, there were about 20 people who were totally blind, depressed, in a corner, kind of waiting to die. And in Nepal, it was just accepted at that time that you get old, your hair turns white, your eye turns white, and then you die. And a name for a blind person in Nepal is a mouth with no hands. When you're in a subsistence agrarian economy, a mouth with no hands is a huge burden on the family. And I have watched as a Dutch team came in and did an outreach cataract program. And it was crazy. It was a miracle. I'd never seen anything like it in medicine, where you have someone goes from totally blind to seeing perfectly the next day. And I went, wow, and this is amazing. And I went back to Kathmandu, and I found out that there was no one in 1989 doing modern cataract surgery. What we do in cataract surgery, we take the whole lens of the eye, the cloudy parts out, and we put a little lens replacement in that gives perfect vision. And no one in the whole country was doing that. And there was a backlog of about 200,000 people who were blind with cataracts in the country. And I thought, wow, this is a place I can make a difference. So I called my old mentor, Dr. Mike Weidman. I said, you were right. He had tried to convince me to go into ophthalmology right out of medical school. And I said, you were right. I should have gone into ophthalmology. And he said, well, I just found out yesterday that a position opened up out of the match at Brown University, and I'll get you that job. So I flew back from Nepal. This was back in 1990. I flew back from Nepal in the spring, and then went to interview. And 2 weeks later, I started training to be an eye surgeon. So the next question is, I had this kind of vision now. I wanted to do something in Nepal. There was this huge need, but how do you do it? And I kind of looked towards mentors and people who had really been, the ones who went before me. And at that time, in the early 1990s, there was only one ophthalmologist who was really focused on teaching and empowering local populations. Most of international eye care at that time was kind of on the medical missionary model, where people would come in, the great American doctor would swoop in, cure the lucky 100, and then leave. And so there's this ophthalmologist in Australia named Fred Hollows, who was really focused on teaching and empowering and training local people. And what I didn't know is that my hero and mentor and guide and elder brother, Sandik Ruit from Nepal, in 1989, when I saw there was no one doing modern cataract surgery, Ruit was in Australia finishing his training with Fred Hollows. And he's really an amazing man. He grew up in a little hill village under the shadow of the world's third highest mountain, Kechenjunga, at about 13,000 feet, in a village with no running water, no electricity, and no schools. And he was fortunately burned in a very bad fire they just cooked with firewood, burned in a fire at age 8. And his father took him to a monastery where the monks said some prayers and put some sort of local healing gels on him. And after a couple weeks in the monastery, the head lama said, "This boy's amazing. He needs an education." So at age 9, his father walked him for 11 days to Darjeeling, India, and left him at a Jesuit school. He spoke no English, he spoke no Hindi, he spoke no Nepali, he only spoke Tibetan and Sherpa. And 8 years later, he emerged from that to have a full scholarship at one of the best medical schools in India. He scored #1 on the Indian medical exams and went to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi to train as an ophthalmologist. And came back to Nepal, saw the incredible need, trying to figure out how to do things, wanted to get the right latest methods. He then was the same Dutch doctor who I watched doing surgery, noticed him and brought him, he completely retrained in the Netherlands and then in Australia. And by the time I came back to work with him, I did my fellowship under the auspices of the Fred Hollows Foundation under a mentor named Hugh Taylor. And I think my other next message for you all is really appreciate people who are willing and want to mentor you and mentors. And then what I'm trying to do in my career right now is kind of turn it around and mentor people like you. But I was really fortunate. Hugh Taylor sent me over to work with Dr. Ruit, and I went on my first little outreach expedition with him. And Dr. Ruit and I was sort of like a mountaineering expedition. We walked for 6 days to a really remote area, but instead of having Sherpas as our partners, this is almost blind woman who had the kind of, before one of the earliest surgeries people did when people would go blind, the ancient Sumerians used to take a little needle and go through the side of the eye and try and dislocate that cloudy lens away, which would make people go from seeing light and dark to seeing basically shadows and not walking into trees. And in the 1860s, a doctor in Germany named von Graefe invented a way to take the whole lens out and close the eye. And then they give these kind of thick Coke bottle-like glasses, which would give some vision. A lot of distortions with these thick glasses. There's a prismatic effect when you look off the center, but people could at least walk around. And then in the 1960s, there was a doctor named Harold Ridley in England who was taking care of a pilot from World War II from the Royal Air Force. And he noticed there was some of the windshield from a Spitfire that had exploded and gone into his eye and had stayed inert for all those years and hadn't caused any reaction. And so he came up with the idea that you could recreate a lens in the eye of the same material as the Spitfire, which is actually it's polymethyl methacrylate. We now use acrylics. And in 1990, the least expensive of these lens implants in the world was over $200, which made it absolutely prohibitive for the developing world. But Dr. Ruit and Fred Hollows from Australia came with the idea that we should be able to manufacture these little plastic lenses in a way that can be affordable. And in the 1990s, actually still today, a lot of the best minds in American medicine, English, Australian, all throughout the world, a lot of the best minds in the Western world are looking at how can we make medicine 0.25% better, even if it's 100% more expensive. And Dr. Rui was one of the first really brilliant minds to think about how can we take what's absolutely the most effective and bring it to a cost that's affordable to the masses of Nepal. And he started a factory through Australian support to manufacture these little interocular lenses, and instantly brought the cost of the lenses down from over $200 down to $4. And the overall cost of surgery now we could deliver for less than $25. He developed systems of sterilization, washing, copious uses of antibiotic to bring infection rates down to a more modern level. And I came to work with him, and I'd gone through the fanciest, most prestigious training programs in America. We worked side by side for 3 days. We restored sight to 324 people, which sounds pretty impressive until you get the breakdown that Dr. Rui restored sight to 300. Well, I restored sight to 24. And I hadn't really worked on cataracts this mature. I need Dr. Rui to come and help me on many of my cases. And these are the little lens implants that had just begun to be manufactured in Kathmandu. And then the results were just crazy. It was just amazing. People going, imagine 320 people, totally blind, now seeing, the families, the joy. And so then I said, I finished my fellowship, and I told Dr. Rui that I want to come and work with you. And it was just kind of a fortuitous time. Again, just a little bit of luck. His mentor, Fred Hollows, unfortunately developed a very aggressive cancer and passed away. And he kind of needed a Western ally. And I came to Nepal and began working with him. And just to go over it very quickly, in America, we don't have that much blindness. We have about 3 blind people per 1,000. That's what we would call legally blind, but still can walk around, do most acts of daily living. And most of our blindness is from things that we can't do much about, unavoidable aging changes. But 90% of the blindness in the world, as you saw in that initial little script, there are 38 million people who are totally blind, and 100 million who have very low vision, what we would call legally blind in America. And 85% of the blindness in the world could have been prevented or could still be treated. And there's been insufficient funding for eye care. And one of the reasons is that, it hasn't been recognized as being a fatal condition. But when you go blind in the developing world, there's no Meals on Wheels. Life expectancy about 1/3 of that of age and health matched peers. And for blind children, it's worse. For low vision, the number one cause of low vision in the world is still refractive error, and people just not having glasses, and older people lost to the workforce. And then for real blindness, over half of the blindness in the world, and about 80% of the blindness in Asia, is from cataracts. And this is what a mature cataract looks like when we take it out. And we're trying to, the other thing that happens when someone goes blind is it takes often a child out of the workforce or a child out of school to take care of the blind person. So I worked in Nepal, and Dr. Rui and I came up with the idea of developing a program and really developing education and establishing infrastructure to overcome blindness. And we were able to unite all of the organizations working in eye care. Dr. Rui developed a system of really delivering where no one does anything anyone with lesser skills can do. And we have, with a very high volume techniques, we have basically the same exact results as we have with the best centers in America. And we were able to reverse blindness in Nepal. We went from about 1 in 100 people being blind to about 0.28% at our last survey about 5 years ago. And the number of cataract surgeries went from 15,000 to over 350,000. We've been teaching at all levels, not just doctors and specialists and training residents, but also training ophthalmic nurses, ophthalmic technicians. We started a 6-month course after 8th grade to train ophthalmic technicians, a 3-year course after high school to train ophthalmic assistants, and also a system which has been called compassionate capitalism to fund the care where paying patients subsidize the cost of the free care. And we created an international training institute. We've been able to spread out from there into Tibet, very successfully into Bhutan. We've just started a training program and opened a new eye hospital in Bhutan. And for the last 10 years, I've been taking the system that's been so successful in Asia and trying to work in Africa. And Africa has the largest manpower problems. They also, in addition to cataracts, they have a lot of infectious blindness, a much higher percentage of glaucoma. When you look at where their doctors, this is where there's blindness in the world. You can see South Asia and Africa are the big bloated places of cataracts. But when you look at where the doctors are, it's just this little shriveled area. And it's not just the doctors that we're training, but also the nurses, the technicians, and the assistants. And using the same system, we're also doing an economic study looking at how blindness is really perpetuating poverty. And having a blind member of the family really has a really deleterious effect on the entire family. And we're showing more than a 400% direct return for every dollar spent on curing blindness in Africa. And that doesn't even include the indirect costs of children who have their lifetime earnings go up by being able to go to school. And we're slowly making progress. Unfortunately, the current pandemic has really slowed things down in a very large way. It's pushing a lot of people back into extreme poverty. It's again taking some of the priority away, a lot of the priority away from eye care. But and the number of absolute blind people is again going way up. And if you go to the UN in Geneva, there's only one statue outside the UN. It's of an African boy leading his father by a stick. And having done this now for more than 25 years, I still get such a thrill on the morning after surgery when the patches come off and people see something for the first time in 10 years. And it's just not just the people, but their families. It really changes the whole dynamic. There's this moment of hesitation, and then they see. So I guess my basic message, it's been such a joy for me because I've just really loved what I'm doing, and I still kind of love what I'm doing. And it's having that passion for what you're doing that really inspires me to keep working harder and keep having more kind of sort of big goals. And in Nepal, we were able to reverse avoidable blindness, and my dream is that in the next 10, 15 years, we can see a similar change in Africa. And thank you so much for your attention. I guess we have about 10 minutes for a question and answer.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Tabin, for sharing your journey to cure blindness. That was really touching. So now we will open up the floor for any questions that you might have. So you can post your questions on this chat below, and we will unmute you so that you can share it in person to the public. So let's see. We have several questions coming up. So let's go to Daniel Lim. If you can unmute and share your question, please.
Good morning, Dr. Tabin. Thank you for joining us for the IYF World Camp.
Oh, my pleasure. Nice to see you. Good morning.
And we really appreciate your presentation today. It was really inspiring to see the work that you've been doing, especially for underdeveloped countries and helping these people receive sight, which is something I feel like we take for granted many times living in a developed world. The question that I have for you is really around, obviously we have a lot of young people, students, aspiring to become something in the future. And listening to your presentation, obviously a lot of great opportunities came your way, and your advice around kind of taking those opportunities and following your passion was very helpful. But what kind of advice would you have for them in terms of overcoming some of the day-to-day challenges that they face, despite maybe those opportunities coming up? What types of challenges that did you have to face, and how did you overcome them? And the advice that you would give for the younger generation?
Well, I think the big thing is to do your absolute best in the moment. And a lot of the opportunities in climbing I couldn't have taken advantage of if I wasn't climbing pretty constantly, and I really had a passion for climbing. And what I've done in eye care, I couldn't have done if I didn't really become a high-level medical specialist, and I really, focusing on the moment. So when I was in my residency, I didn't think about what I could maybe be doing in Asia, what is needed in Africa. I thought about what I was doing at the moment, becoming the absolute best I could be at what I was doing now. And when I'm with a patient, it's taking the absolute best care of that individual patient and doing the absolute best I can in the moment, even if it's something really that seems fairly trivial to me and I have other patients with horrible blinding disorders. That's the most important eye problem of that patient, and to really focus on the moment and taking care of the best you can in that moment. And something like, overcoming challenges, I think one of the best examples is Dr. Ruit. Dr. Ruit came, from a background of absolute abject poverty, no schools. And, he took advantage of a couple of situations, but he came to where he was by doing the best he could in the moment. And we all have, huge challenges. It's you say, oh yeah, well, you had a challenge staying at Harvard Medical School. Well, but at every level, it's doing the best you can in the moment that brings you to the next opportunity, and being ready for the next opportunity. And having, the pandemic now and schools being closed, but that doesn't mean you can't open a book. And that doesn't mean you can't really study online. And we all have huge challenges. One of the other things that's allowed me to be where I am is I've had always a focus on what I was doing and less on the monetary results. So, I had a passion for wanting to go and work in Nepal. And Dr. Ruit said, great, love to have you work with me. But, in those days, Dr. Ruit was the premier ophthalmologist in the country of Nepal, and his total income was probably somewhere around 10 or 15,000 US dollars a year. And I was coming over kind of as a trainee, so basically no money at all. But I had a passion for how I was living, and I didn't worry about the money and, sort of put things where the priority was on really doing what I felt was the best to do. And actually each stage in my career, I've taken, sort of when I was my first faculty job after Nepal, after working and helping start the training program in Nepal, we formed the Himalayan Cataract Project and I came back to my first faculty job at the University of Vermont. And I was in the University of Vermont for 10 years, then the University of Utah for 11 years, and now at Stanford. And at every one of those negotiations, my negotiations focused on time and what I would be able to do to make an impact in the developing world, rather than looking at finances.
Thank you so much for answering the question. I hope that answered your question, Daniel. So our next question will go to Justin Kim. So if you can unmute and share the question.
Hello, doctor. It's very nice to meet you, and I'm so honored to be able to listen to your talk. My question was about all the mentors you had in your life. I know you've met many great mentors, and you stated that we should be thankful for the people who are willing and able to care for us and to guide us. I was just wondering, like, how do you have any advice on searching for those kind of mentors? I feel like when I look at myself, I don't feel kind of like qualified to reach out to certain people in order to like, hey, can I like work with you or that kind of thing? And I'm not sure how many of your mentors were like serendipity, as you said, or like you reached out to certain people to work with you and that kind of thing.
I think a lot is serendipity, and a lot is just having your own passion for what you're doing. You can't really reach out to a mentor and say, I want to absorb some of your passion, or I want to have you mentor me. But when I was a really keen young climber, expanding my skills from being just a pure rock climber to going into the mountains, I was really lucky that I met a couple of the best American mountaineers in the 70s and 80s who sort of liked hanging out with me, and we began climbing together, and that slowly developed into a mentoring relationship. And I've had that personally with young climbers. Similarly, I was in medical school, and I was really passionate about global medicine, what I was doing, and I was working really hard. And I began having a relationship with some of the people involved in global medicine at Harvard, and then eventually Dr. Weidman in ophthalmology. But it was really kind of a mutual passions going in the same direction. And then similarly, I was then looking, how do I get involved in global ophthalmology? But by that time, I was already finishing my training as an ophthalmologist. I'd already been spending a fair amount of time in the developing world, and I ended up really connecting with Professor Hugh Taylor. And I find that now I have a couple of amazing medical students and a couple of amazing residents who I'm very proud to feel like I'm mentoring now. But they're not people who would write to me and reach out to me and say, Dr. Taven, but they're people who are have already put in the time, the effort, been accepted at Stanford Medical School, and we're now kind of working in lockstep and moving in the same direction. So it's not really so much just reaching out to a mentor, but really following your passions. And as you're moving forward in whatever area you're interested in, then once you're at a certain level, then people want to work with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So we will just have one last question from Ketcha of Faith 21. If you can ask your question to Dr. Taven.
Okay, hello, good morning. All right, so my question is, once diagnosed with cataract, do you wait until it becomes mature before doing surgery, and why? I heard you speak a lot about poverty, those underdeveloped countries, and also, right. So I wanted to know, if there are other causes. I heard you speak about diseases of the eyes like that. So could radiation be, what are some of the causes of cataract?
Well, cataract is really multifocal. I mean, multifactorial. Big is genetic, UV sunlight, poor diet, having shifts in having chronic fluid shifts from diarrhea through your life. If we all live long enough, we'll all get cataracts. And in America, we don't wait. I usually operate in America when somebody's starting to have a little bit of difficulty driving at night. The surgery is just as good at any level. And what we want to get to is a sustaining time when people who can still work in the fields, people who can still work in a shop, people who can still work in any capacity have their cataract surgery done before they go blind. Unfortunately, right now there are about 18 million people who are totally blind from cataracts, but it would have been great if we could have operated on them. We could have operated on them earlier. And the other thing is that when you operate when people are younger and still working, those are the ones who can pay and subsidize the care. Usually when someone goes totally blind in the developing world, it's a huge financial burden on the family. People are destitute. They don't make any money. So in answer to your question, Catch Your Faith, the best solution is to operate earlier, but the nice thing about the surgery is it works just as well at pretty much any stage. And unfortunately, there is no magic public health cure. One of the other leading causes of blindness in the world is trachoma, which is an infectious disease in Africa. And by getting clean water to everybody in the population, we should be able to overcome trachoma. Whereas with cataracts, it really is an undeniable change in aging. In America, it's the number one expense for Medicare. It's the most common major operation being done. And, if we all live long enough, we all will have decreased vision from cataracts. But the nice thing is it's curable.
Awesome. So everyone, let's give him a round of applause. And thank you once again. And we will conclude our session today.
Did you enjoy the lecture? I think it was a very inspiring lecture. Please give him a big round of applause. Okay, thank you. I'll give you an announcement. If you have any question today, please contact the email you see on the screen and the WhatsApp number. And if you go to Sri Lanka YouTube channel, you can learn more about Korean culture. Please don't forget to subscribe and like it. From September 25th to 27th, we will hold on 2020 IYF Sri Lanka Online World Camp. And if you go to Sri Lanka YouTube channel, Facebook or Instagram, you can find more information about the World Camp. Everyone, did you have fun today?
Yes, thank you. We truly had a great time today, and we are going to end Saturday Academy here today. Then,
see you next week.